the summer in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and then they lived in Florida the rest of the year. And she went missing in 1981 when she was on a walk with two other women. She walked ahead of them and she just disappeared. And I looked into her case as well, getting in some study, but nothing ever affected me like the story of Trenny Lynn Gibson. And she's my main focus.
Can I ask what you do for a living outside of detecting people?
I have no knowledge or personal background whatsoever, other than an interest in it, and I've always been upfront with people that ask me about that. I have no law enforcement background. I'm not a private investigator. I'm a professional chef.
Oh, you're a chef?
Yes, professional chef.
All right, well.
I manage a cafeteria actually at a museum. That's my job.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it is. Looking for Trenny, that's basically like something I do in my own hours. I have a room in my house, and my husband calls it my reading room, but I have a map of the Smoky Mountain National Park on my wall, a map of Knoxville, a map of the counties, the various counties in Tennessee, postcards, a 1976 calendar, and several books, and then I have my several Baker's boxes in the closet that contain all of Trenny's information that I've amassed over the years.
Wow, good for you. We did an episode about Trenny a few weeks ago, and,
yes!
And we put a bunch of information out
bitch.
to hear your side of recounting the incident.
Well, Trenny was part of a horticulture class at Newton High School. And Trenny was 16. She just turned 16 in August. And the incident was October 8, 1976. And Trenny was interested in horticulture and plants. She enjoyed the class very much, as far as anyone could tell me. Her teacher was a new teacher who appeared in that year, Mr. Wayne Dunlap. And he had a background in agriculture. And they had a greenhouse.
Goddamn,
that was built onto the school, and it was all brand new. And then they had a greenhouse out in the back where they had the plants and everything growing. And Trenny was so interested in plants and agriculture that she planned to later attend the University of Tennessee, and she wanted to get a degree in landscape architecture. She was quite excited about this trip. Trenny was a quiet girl, and she was a bit of a lone. She had friends, and she was friendly with different groups of students at school, but she tended to keep to herself and sort of march to her own beat. She was quite independent, and like her parents said, level-headed. So this field trip was set for a Friday morning, and Trenny originally thought that the trip would be called off. The morning of the trip, the forecast was for cooler temperatures and fairly nasty weather, high winds, rain, fog, and possible snow flurries. And she thought that they might not even be going. But she did not know where they were going that morning. She just knew that it was a field trip. The class would be gone all day, but she didn't know if they were going, indoors somewhere to a facility. She didn't know where exactly they were going because Mr. Dunlap kept the destination of the trip a secret until they were leaving.
It's infuriating. Yeah, don't get Tim started on Mr. Dunlap.
Okay, I won't go there.
Oh, you should.
I understand completely what you're saying, and I agree with you, Tim.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of it's hard to explain, but that wasn't really that terribly uncommon in those days. Really, we're going to go somewhere, and it was a surprise. The students found out about it when they were on the bus, and they were going to park the parking lot, and that's when they were told they were going to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park that day. And because Trenny didn't know exactly where she was going, her mother suggested she try dressed warmly. So she had a blouse on, and then she had a sweater on over the blouse. She didn't take her jacket or hat. All she had with her was her bag lunch. When they got to the school that morning, her mother had given her a ride to school. Trenny asked one of her fellow students rather that was going by on the sidewalk if he knew if the trip was still on for the day, and he said that yes, it was still a go. So Trenny left her books and her purse in her mother's car and just took her bag lunch and said goodbye, and that was the end of it.
So that was the last time that her family had seen her?
Yes, that's the last time that her family had ever seen her again.
That was October 8, 1976.
Yes.
And can you remind me, I think you said it previously, when did you start looking at this? Was it in 2003?
In 2003, it'll be 17 years next month, actually, that I discovered the case. And then I started looking into it more thoroughly in 2005. And the reason for that was in 2005, I had a bad accident at work, and I was laid up at home for 3 months, and kind of needed, thought I should, pass the time somehow. So I started looking back into some missing persons.
Oh, you bitch.
Chinese included.
Oh, you got a goddamn tank.
There was a little bit more about her, like Web Sleuths was up and running. There was a few other sites that were going at that time. The Charlie Project was another one. And that was where I started amassing a little more information.
Right about the bow.
Prior to 2005, it was basically newspapers.com, and that's all it was. For picturing a little bit about her case on the domain.
And you've spoken to some
Oh, you bitch.
classmates?
Yes, I interviewed some of the classmates that were on the field trip. I'm in contact with Trenny's mother and her one brother. They live in West Virginia. We speak to each other quite regularly. I don't like to, like I told Jen, I don't like to reach out to Trenny's mother too much. She's past 80, and it's very hard for her to talk about it even to this day. So what we do is she reaches out to me when she feels like talking more, or to see if I have any questions that I need answered, and so on and so forth.
How did you first establish the relationship with the family?
They found me. In 2007, a friend of mine had a crime forum. It was called Chris's Crime Forum. She started it because she went to high school with a girl that vanished. And this happened in Alberta. It happened in East River, actually, which is northern Alberta. She went to school with a girl by the name of Carolyn Reiser. And Carolyn went missing in 1984, near to where her home was. And she's never been seen since. And it affected Chris, and it has to this day. They went to high school together, and they actually starred in a drama production together as well. So Chris and I combined forces, and we had a crime forum. My area of expertise were more of the cold cases and more missing persons, missing children, that sort of category was mine. And in 2010, I believe it was, that's when Hope Gibson, Trenny's mother, she reached out to me.
She had seen some of the work you had done and thought it was good.
Yeah, she's seen some of the work that I had done. I actually had a photo of Trenny as my avatar on the crime forum. And Hope Gibson, she's stayed quite on top of Trenny's case even after all these years. She does a lot of research on the internet, and that's how she came across me. And she started talking to me.
Oh, you missed.
She started posting on the site a little bit about Trenny. And then she reached out to me through message. And then a little while after that, we started talking back and forth.
Oh, you bitch. I'm trying to stay down.
Did she have any opinion as to the direction you were going in, or did she shape your independent investigation in any way?
No, nobody's ever shaped my investigation. I had my mind made up when I first saw Trenny's face, and she pleaded with me for help, and I read through her case. I knew what happened to her. And that's been my stance ever since, what happened to her. The only part I would say that I've changed a bit is where Trenny is. I'm a little more open now to where she is, rather than being closed-minded and saying, well, no, there was no way she could be there. She had to be here. I'm more open-minded in that respect, but in the respect where what happened to Trenny that day, and is she alive? Is she deceased? I've never waited for that.
And what do you think?
Trenny's long gone. She died the same day she disappeared.
Yeah. And you think she's out of the park, or you think she's in there still?
Oddly enough, in the very beginning, I wasn't sure. I believe Trenny was gone. I didn't think that she had run away or anything like that, or fallen into a crevice or hole, or wild animals got her, or God forbid, Bigfoot or the aliens. No. I kind of tended more to think she'd been taken out of the park, murdered, and then disposed of. Years later, I started thinking, crazy as this sounds, Trenny was murdered and buried in that park. And that's
Yeah,
what I'm
fucking ass too late.
focusing on more now, is she's in the park somewhere. And I have reasons to back that up why I feel that way. It's not just some crazy intuition thing. I have reasons why I think that. And that's
That's unbelievable. Can you lead us up to you coming to this conclusion? And for whoever doesn't know, can you walk us through when she disappeared? Like, she was on the trail and she had stopped and those circumstances?
Well, Trenny was walking. She spent the first part of the hike with her friend, Robert Simpson. She was friends with, and I should back up here, and I'm just going to tell you now, so I'll do my best to get this for you. Robert Simpson, I will just refer to him as Simpson only. Trenny also had an older brother named Robert, and I will call him Bob, or Bob Gibson. And Trenny's father was Robert Gibson Sr. Trenny was walking with Simpson that morning. Now, Simpson was a good friend of Trenny's older brother, Bob, and Trenny knew Simpson well, of course, and felt really comfortable and safe. And Trenny's brother had been leave, and he had just come home on leave on Wednesday. This was Friday.
Oh, you bitch. Motherfucking.
He had just come back. He'd been in training. He'd been gone since July, and he and Trenny were always very close. From the day that Trenny came home from the hospital as a baby, they were always very close. So anyway, Bob knew that Trenny was going to be away on this field trip for the day, and she was a little nervous about it. Trenny was kind of a homebody. She tended to stay around home. So Bob Gibson had asked his best friend, Simpson, can you just keep an eye on Trenny and make sure she's all right and whatever. So, I don't know about that kind of thing. And if somebody tasks you with looking after their sister, you took that seriously. That was a job, and that was something that you were supposed to do. So that morning, Simpson and Trenny, I say morning, but it's actually more around noon when the hike started, when they reached the park. And they were hiking to Adams Wall, which was their assignment. They were supposed to observe the trees and flora and fauna along the way, but they weren't allowed to pick or gather anything, just observe. They ate their lunch somewhere along the way, and they got to Andrews Falls without and looked around at the diverse wildlife.
I am more than fucking one kill.
And by now, the other students had also reached the wall, and a lot of them had departed. They were kind of just all hiking in groups according to their ability. They weren't hiking in one large group or two medium-sized groups, just kind of whoever they wanted to hike with type of thing. So anyway, now it kind of gets a little bit gray. Even though Simpson was tasked with watching Trenny for the day, Trenny seems to want to go back to the bus, and Simpson wants to stay behind and hang out for a while. So they part company at this point. Simpson stays behind on Andrew's ball, and Trenny starts walking back down towards the bus. And the students that I've interviewed said that she seemed to be kind of hiking like she had a destination in mind. She was hiking a little bit faster than some of the other students who were kind of just strolling along, enjoying their day out of school. And Trenny would kind of catch up to a group and fall in step with them, maybe speak to them a little bit, and then she'd speed up and catch up to another group. And so on. The last time the groups that saw Trenny said that they were going to sit down and have a rest. The last group that Trenny had walked with had a boy among them, and he was breathing a little on the easy side. He had asthma. So they stopped to rest, and they invited Trenny to sit and rest with them, and she said no, she wanted to keep going. And they said that she wasn't acting strangely or anything, just she wanted to leave. So they sat down and they watched, and the trail kind of had a bend in it. So it was a little bit hard to see, but one of the girls said she sort of leaned over and she saw Trenny stop on the trail and then kind of crouch down for a moment and look off to the right, and then she appeared to step off the trail then to the right. And this girl thought that was a bit odd, but she thought maybe Trenny had to relieve herself, go to the washroom. So she didn't think too much of it. And then when the group stood up and started walking again, she said she sort of paused at the approximate place where Trenny had stepped off the trail. And she said she looked, and she thought it was really strange Trenny would get off there because there was nothing there. There was nowhere to go, there was no side trail. Nothing. There was just thick shrubbery. There was a little bit of a stream, and it made the bank slick. And she said she even got off and kind of took a step or two and called Trenny's name. There was no answer. So thinking that Trenny had just, stepped off quickly and they missed seeing her, or she thought gone back on the trail at another spot, they just figured she'd be up the bus and they just continued on the merry way. It was at the bus stand when they were doing the goal that they realized that Trenny would come back.
And about how long after they saw the trail were they at the bus?
This case suffers a bit from what I call the painful timeline. The students said that they last saw Trenny between 2:45 and 3 o'clock. And the students were all supposed to be back at the bus at 3:30 sharp so that they could begin their destination back to Knoxville. So this girl claimed that Trenny stepped off. They last saw her at about 10 minutes to 3. And that's the time given also in the search report from the National Park Service.
Okay. And then it sounded like Mr. Dunlap actually sort of hustled action pretty quickly the immediate search.
He did. I'll take this moment to point out, and I know you pointed this out on the podcast, Mr. Dunlap was the only adult with 40 teenage kids, 15, 16, 17 kids. The bus driver, as per Knoxville, as per the Knoxville School District, in those days, he was required to stay with the bus. And as far as I can ascertain, he did carry that out. He did stay with the bus. So Mr. Dunlap was the only teacher or adult on that trip, and he tended to hide towards the back just to make sure there was no stragglers. But he did participate and he did walk with the students. So when it was discovered that Trenny didn't come back, Mr. Dunlap swung into action. He got another student named Danny Johnson with him, and he sent Danny to Andrew's Ball to see if he could see any trace of Trenny. Mr. Dunlap went to Double Springs to see if Trenny had possibly stepped off. There's a trail that loops around, and gotten confused and ended up down at Double Springs instead of the parking lot where the school bus was. The students that remained, they were told that they could search around the parking lot, but they had to remain inside it. Mr. Dunlap and Danny returned from their respective searches and had found nothing. Although Mr. Dunlap does claim in the search report that he did see small-sized tennis shoe prints fitting Trenny's description because she had on Adidas tennis shoes and they had a certain type of dash and a star pattern on the bottom of the shoe. And he said he did see small-sized tennis shoe prints for about a half mile on the 18th, which is short from the Appalachian Trail. But I will point out that the shoe prints are only ever mentioned once in the search report and then never again. So I don't know. The weather was bad. It was raining. The wind was picking up. I don't know if the footprints possibly got washed away, and that's why they're never mentioned again in the search report. But after they found no trace of Trenny, Mr. Dunlap notified the Park Service via CB radio that a student was missing, and they sent a ranger down to come and help search. And he went to Douglas Springs and found no trace of Trenny. They went to Clingman's Dome, no trace of Trenny. Mr. Dunlap then decided, because it was dark and the students were on the bus, they were afraid, they didn't know what was happening. He then made the decision to send the school bus of students back to Union High in Knoxville and was assist with the search.
Have you ever had the opportunity to speak with Wayne Dunlap?
I reached out to Mr. Dunlap several times. I even tracked down his ex-wife and spoke to her. She and Mr. Dunlap were married when Trenny vanished. So she remembers the case quite well. Mr. Dunlap, it took him a serious toll on him, Trenny's disappearance. He had a near nervous breakdown, and he actually resigned from here that year, and he and his wife at the time, they moved away. They moved clear across the country to Oregon.
Oh, wow. And he was sort of suspected at one point, is that true?
He was suspected at one point, and I will point this out. It's the way that I looked at this. To me, everybody that was on that trip is a suspect, unless there's a way that I can rule them out somehow. I suspect them all. That's just the way that I've had to look at this. I suspected everybody, unless there was some reason that I ruled them out, that they had nothing to do with it.
So when you spoke with Mr. Dunlap's wife, was she receptive to your investigation, or was she sort of standoffish?
Oh yes, it was the ex-wife that I reached out to. She was very helpful. She did give me Mr. Dunlap's contact information, and then she reached out to him herself and tried to, plead on my behalf. Like I told her, I'm not trying to judge anybody or anything like that. I just, want the facts of what happened that day. That's it. I said, I'm not trying to frighten anyone or anything like that. I don't know what Mr. Dunlap's, what his mental health is at this point, and I wasn't trying to do anything like that. I just wanted the hard, cold facts and the information what happened that day. And he has never reached out to me despite several attempts. I've even handwritten letters and sent them to him, asking for information, telling him, it's I'm not trying to pressure you, I'm not trying to judge you, I just want the facts, and he's ignored me.
It's pretty telling on a number of levels. One of them, I'm sure, is the fact that he had this nervous breakdown and probably is being advised by, assuming a counselor, not to revisit that date. Do you think that that's a possibility?
And that's a distinct possibility. Mr. Dunlap was also a veteran. He was in the Vietnam War. He was a quartermaster in the Army. So he wasn't in Vietnam. Then he
going this way up, one more way.
did a wonderful job. The students were very, very happy with him. They enjoyed being in his class very much. Any of the people that I've interviewed that were students of Mr. Dunlap had nothing but good things to say about him. It was just this rather poorly planned, poorly organized field trip, that led to this. And that's what I mean when I tell him like I'm not going to judge him or anything like that. I wasn't going to get into a debate about what he probably should have done better. Because really, he's probably beat himself up about over and over again over the years. Could have, should have, sort of thing. So I didn't want to do that. I just wanted facts. That's all I was interested in.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sure he's done that to himself over and over.
That's right. And really, even if he had just written me a letter back, sent an email back and said, hey, I can't do this and here's why, I can't talk about this and here's why, that would have been fine. I would have been very happy with that, and that would have been the end of it. But to just stay silent, that does bother me a little bit.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like he is the most suspicious person from the trip. Would you say that's true?
No, because the students do remember seeing him. He was hiking with various groups. He did tend to hike more toward the back of the students, which does make sense, bringing up the group to make sure, that everyone was out. Really only Mr. Dunlap, like I said, he's guilty of a poorly planned, poorly executed field trip.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's your opinion on why Trini got on the trip in the first place? If she was in danger, was she trying to get away from danger when she was walking on purpose, and then she saw the universe, or maybe someone was calling her?
Trini didn't have no experience in the park whatsoever. I ascertained that by speaking to the family and even Trini's extended family asking an interview with them. She'd never been to the park before, so she didn't have a good grasp of how it was laid out. In those days, you couldn't just Google it. You had to buy a map and study it. And Trini also didn't know that that's where they were going that day. She didn't know about the destination ahead of time, so that was all a surprise. My thoughts were Trini got lured off the trail. There was somebody on the trail. They may have taken another trail parallel to that one, or they could have cut to the woods. Somebody that knew the park quite well. And they lured her off. They likely really grabbed her back or something. And Trini was a level-headed girl. It was somebody that she knew fairly well. And she saw, their friendly face in the woods. I can see her stepping off trail to go and see, what they want. Maybe they said they wanted to show her. They knew Trini was very interested in plants, flowers, that sort of thing. A baby animal is another great way to lure someone off the trail. Oh, come here, I'm going to do this baby fill in the blank. But to me, she was lured off.
And you think that would have had to be from someone on the trip with her, right? So who was on that bus?
Yes, it was definitely somebody she knew. It was somebody that was just out hiking, trying to step off the trail and gone into the underbrush for them. She might have looked, they waved at her, and then just looked away and kept walking. She hadn't got her head screwed on straight. Let's put it that way. It had to have been somebody she knew.
Did she have any boyfriends or any romantic interests at the time?
Trini was interested in a few boys, but as far as I can ascertain, she wasn't dating anyone, although she was allowed to date. The family rule was once she turned 16, she was allowed to date, but her parents said that she hadn't been out with anybody, but that was her choice. She just really wasn't interested in anyone to go out on it. But when talking to some of her girlfriends at school, they said, oh yes, Trini had a crush on this boy or that boy, but a crush was all it was. It never went any further than that.
Now, what about this Simpson guy? Did he have a crush on Trini or anything like that?
Yes, and as far as I can ascertain, yes, he did have a crush on Trini. Simpson was a heavy-set kid, and he tended to wear overalls. He was another student, sort of like Trini, but in a different way.
Oh, come, get the fuck out of here.
Like
Get the fuck out of here.
He was involved in the outdoor
Get the fuck out of here.
hunting and fishing club at school. He also did some backpacking and overnight tent trips.
In the fucking world up here.
Familiar with the Smokies, but his area of expertise tended to be a different section of the Smokies rather than the section where they were hiking that day or Trenny actually missing. His father, Robert Simpson Sr., there's another father, was a prominent attorney in Knoxville at the time, and he was actually had been promoted to district attorney.
I feel like you're indicating something.
Yes, I'm glad you picked up on that.
It was the long pause afterwards.
He had his own car. Trenny was a year younger than he was, so he was a senior. Trenny was a junior when she vanished. And he hung around a fair bit with Bob, Trenny's older brother, and they were good friends. And he also had two younger sisters as well. They both attended here. I believe one was a year or two younger than Trenny.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsor.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, full stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai, visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
Son of a
This
bitch.
episode is brought to you by Hyundai. Did you know what an electric vehicle should be? Think again. From the charge time Ioniq 5 and 6 to the 601 horsepower Ioniq 5N, Hyundai is redefining what EVs should be. Learn more about Hyundai EVs at HyundaiUSA.com. EPA estimates 303-mile driving range for 2024 Ioniq 5 SE SEL and 3-wheel drive, 364-mile driving range for 2024 Ioniq 6 SE all-wheel 3-wheel drive, full charge battery, actual
Bullshit. I was in the fucking corner, you bitch. I was in the fucking corner.
So if the future they want is in the military, take the time to learn more at todaysmilitary.com because their success tomorrow begins with your support today. As a parent or mentor, you have an awesome opportunity to help a young person build a future. So if the future they want is in the military, take the time to learn more at todaysmilitary.com because their success tomorrow begins with your support today.
Thanks to our sponsors, but now we're back to the program. So, this Simpson guy, what was his actions like during the time when Trenny went missing? Did anyone have eyes on him?
No. Nobody seems to know where he was exactly after he and Trenny parted ways on Actors Hall. Nobody remembered hiking with him, anything like that. They do remember him coming back to the bus. In fact, one of the girls that I spoke with, I say girl, but she's 60 years old now. She said we all made it. It wasn't that difficult of a hike. She said even Robert Simpson made it. She said he was hopping and popping a little because he was an overweight guy. But she said we were all there. It was just Trenny that was gone.
So, realistically, how long would someone have had to be unaccounted for with Trenny before they would have had to have shown up on the bus?
Really, if she went off the trail at the time that they said that she did, which is in the neighborhood of 2:45, 2:50, they were supposed to be back at the bus then at 3:30. So really about 45 minutes, but you also have to take into account the distance to come back to the bus. But Trenny's case also suffers for what I call the tainted timeline. There's quite a gap in time. There could be a longer amount of time or a shorter amount of time. She could have went missing earlier than they thought she did, or even a little bit later. It's not an exact science as to when exactly she went missing. It's sort of a window. At that point, that's when she stepped off the trail and they didn't see her. But it was right at 3:30 when the students were back to the bus and they were being told that they discovered she was gone.
That doesn't leave a lot of time for someone to just slip away undetected and come back and not be dirty, not be too affected by what had maybe just happened.
It's not a huge window of time,
We
but
have lost objective
when
Edward.
they were searching for Trenny's uncles came, and they were from the mountainous part of Old Country, Tennessee. They actually brought their own dogs as well to make the search. And what they did was they took the time and distance, what it would take to go from Amber's home, going through the woods, to the approximate area where Trenny stepped off the trail, and timed it out to how long it would take them to get back on the trail through the woods to get to the parking lot and the school bus. They timed it all out to see if somebody could do something nefarious that was on the field trip and have time to do it and have time to get to the bus and
Get down.
they would have enough time.
Okay, so something nefarious, like
Oh, God damn it.
too way, probably not cover it too great, probably not bury her too great, or anything like that, but then have to hustle back.
Right.
Did they say how long it would have taken?
They claimed about half an hour.
Wow, so that really isn't much time.
No.
You're down to like 10 minutes or something. You can actually, you actually would have been able to conceal Trenny.
You also have to realize too.
Oh, he was still up there. Oh, he came up mine,
There is
bitch.
a possibility that something happened to Trenny where
Oh, no.
he was deceased, but they didn't. It wasn't a planned thing.
Okay, this fucking
Sort of
look.
happened. So you also have to take a look at it that way. That it could have been something that just went too far, and perhaps she passed away.
Interesting.
Is there any areas in the terrain there that she could have been maybe thrown over,
We have the
like
upper
really
hand.
quickly, not like a cliff or something, or some sort of
There are cliffs in the area, but I will also point out to you as well. I don't know how in depth you visit my website about Trenny, but if you happen to go on there, you'll notice there's several pictures of Clingman's Dome.
We have
And in one of the photos, it was sent to me by a viewer, that in the 1970s, in the base of the Clingman's Dome Tower, there was a room. And it just had a dirt floor, and they used it for storage. And there is a possibility that Trenny's cat door may have taken her there, because Trenny's scent was picked up at the base of that Clingman's Dome Tower.
That's creepy.
But if you go on my site, you'll see a photo of it, that at that time there was a room in there.
how long was it before they brought dogs into Trenny's consent?
They brought the dogs in the next day. They were bloodhounds and shepherds, and Trenny's uncles had come up from Old Country. And they brought their own dogs to the And I will point out that all the dogs hit on the same spots. And, they're German shepherds, they're hunting dogs, and they're bloodhounds. So it's not like a dog picked up a scent over here, or the other dogs didn't pick that up. The dogs all hit on the same place. And her scent was picked up when she stepped off the trail. There was also another hit at the base of the Clingman's Dome Tower. And her scent was also picked up in Collins Gap, and her scent was taken to the edge of the paved road in Collins Gap. Collins Gap is over maybe 15 or 20
Oh, fuck, man.
and it was, her scent was picked
Fucking
up.
around.
That's where I believe she was put in a car.
I ain't doing a goddamn kill.
Taken away.
That sounds likely.
This is crazy.
And you kind of mentioned building an accident that where more than one person on this trip maybe knew what happened. Is that because there are several suspicious people or people not being like coming through?
Well, yes. Robert Simpson, I've always had the mind that if he was harmed Trenny, he knows what happened to her. He knows much more than what he has ever told. And a lot of that was because of counsel from his father. His father, I think, also made him stick to the story. The alibi that Simpson gave where he was when when Trenny disappeared was they had parted ways in Anthony's Road, and he had gone off tracking a bear.
That sounds reasonable.
He was doing that until he, was time for him to head back to the bus, and then he did.
Fuck.
And he always stuck to that story. The Gibson family, they questioned him. Trenny's grandmother said, you know Bobby, because that's what they called him. They called him Bobby. She said, where were you when you were supposed to be with Trenny? You were supposed to take care of her, and you were supposed to walk with her back to the bus. And she said, you ate after lunch because Trenny had given a Simpson burger sandwich that day. She said, you ate after lunch and then you just let her go off by herself. Where were you? And Simpson stated, he jumped out of his chair and he stated, I was walking right to there. And then he took off on his But he stubbornly stuck to that tracking a bear story, which I'm sure you know as well as I do. It's completely ridiculous.
It's completely ridiculous. There's no way somebody could be absolutely idiotic.
It's insane. With that time of year without a firearm or
It's a bear.
a more plausible excuse for saying something to the effect of, I really had to go to the bathroom and I asked Trenny to wait for me, and when I finished my business and came back, she was gone. So I guess she didn't want to wait. She took off. And he could have said, I walked back down on the trail and I never did see her, but I figured she was just walking with someone else. But he stubbornly stuck to that bear story, and that is in the statement that he gave the authorities.
That's ridiculous.
It is.
For the search, how long did the search? How long did it carry out?
Well, they started searching that evening. Mr. Dunlap and one of the rangers. And more rangers came between 6 and 7 o'clock that night after the students had left to go back to Deer on the school bus. They searched as much as they could that night, but of course it was dark. Rain had set in, high winds, the temperature had plunged. But they searched all night. They finally stopped at about 3 o'clock. Gibson,
Oh, come on. Get the fuck out of here.
They drove up to
Ain't nowhere in the world, man.
stayed in Gatlinburg, and they were up there for like the first 5 days of the search. And they brought along unwashed clothing with them. Trenny had gone to the search dogs. And the next morning, 19 searchers came to search for Trenny. Dr. Black was a prominent physician up there. He came and got set up with his team of nurses to screen the searchers and be on site for any injuries or anybody that was suffering from the cold temperatures. And they had brought in the helicopters, but the helicopters couldn't take off the search because the weather was so foggy. They had to wait till the fog broke later on Saturday afternoon. But I'll also point out, and it mentions this in the search report, that nobody closed the gate by Cleveland's Dome until the next morning. So that gate was left open from the time that it was realized Trenny was gone until the following day.
Oh, come on. Get the fuck out of here, man. Get the hell out of here. Man, ain't nowhere in the fucking world.
But that's the route they took, that gate had been left open.
Shooting this motherfucker out here, he won't die. Come on, man.
On the cigarettes that were found.
The cigarettes, I've always kind of been on the fence with those. They're possibly just a red herring, but I do think they have some significance. Many of the students that went to Bearden at that time were smokers. Robert Simpson, I'll also point out, was a smoker. He smoked both the cigarettes and he also smoked pot quite heavily. And these cigarette butts were found in a pile close to where Trenny had stepped off the trail. And there was also half a can of beer found there. And the beer was fairly fresh, you could still smell it when the searchers found it. And more cigarettes of the same brand were found along the trail. that was leading to the dog's death, and also by the side of the road where the dogs had picked up Trenny's scent in Collins Gap. So these cigarettes were all of the same brand.
What brand was it? Was it a popular brand?
I've never been told what brand that these cigarettes were. I have been told that the cigarettes were retained as evidence, but it's not to my knowledge that they've been tested for DNA.
Okay.
Yeah, you know,
Chinese smoke? Did you say that Chinese smoke too?
here's what I say.
No.
Get the fuck out of here.
But I can find out speaking to people that knew her at school or away from home.
Oh, come on, get the fuck out of here.
She was more of a down-to-earth, like if somebody offered her one,
Oh, you don't want to. I'm sorry.
to kind of be social, but she wasn't a heavy smoker. And it was also told to me that her brother Bob kind of got started on it and that sort of thing. But Dre didn't smoke around her folks. She knew that they didn't like it. So it was more like it was a dabbling thing that she did when she was away from home.
And was it pretty common knowledge that Simpson was the prime suspect? Was he
Shit.
pointed at him in the town?
Oh yes, they were. Because I believe this was brought up in the podcast episode. They found Trenny's phone in his car.
Alright, bitch.
Trenny had this phone, and to people nowadays, the phone doesn't seem like any significant type of thing. But in the 70s, a phone was almost like a status symbol. You had it in the hip pocket, the back pocket of your jeans, with the handle kind of sticking out. And Trenny's mother had bought her sister Tina, as well as Trenny, each one of these heavy Stanley combs that were popular at the time. Stanley was a company sort of like Bull Brush, and these were heavy, thick combs, and they were good for girls that had long hair. And the combs were expensive. They were $5 back in the 70s, fairly expensive. And Trenny treasured this comb. She always had it in her right hip pocket of her jeans, and she'd pull it out every once in a while and run it through her hair. And she was never without this thing. She really liked this comb. So anyway, after Trenny disappeared, her comb showed up on the dash of Simpson's car. And it was actually Trenny's brother Bob. And he asked Simpson, "What are you doing with Trenny's comb? You know, why do you have a comb?" And Robert Simpson sort of shrugged and said that, "Oh, well, Trenny just wanted me to hang on to it for her." And he'd been using it to comb his own hair, Simpson had, and his own curls wadded around in it. As Trenny's mother said, Trenny would have died to see the comb in the States. But that's where they found it. So that was definitely something was odd with this whole thing. And then another thing that was strange was having her home service. So did Trenny's jewelry. Trenny had a really nice ring and necklace, and she'd been wearing it the day of the field trip. She had a sapphire stone in the ring and necklace and some diamonds. It was semi-valuable jewelry. She got it for her birthday, Christmas gifts. And this jewelry was then found in the possession of a girl that was in the sophomore class of beer. And it got through the grapevine that this girl had this jewelry, and another girl that knew Trenny, and they didn't go to school together, but this girl, I'll call her Sandy, because she doesn't want her name out there. She actually went to church with the Gibsons, and she knew Trenny